Silke, hi. Thanks so much for being here.
Yeah, hello, Eleni. Thank you for having me. Very much looking forward to this.
So let's dive in. I'm interested in learning more. We've already talked a bit about this, but I'm curious to learn more about why it is that you decided to start offering workshops to preschool teachers and daycare specialists for the younger ones. If I understand correctly, 0 to 6 that you tap with during their in-service training, their staff training days.
Exactly. So I've been working for more than 22 years as a behavior consultant. So consulting families with children, teenagers with neurodivergence, autism, ADHD, even Down syndrome, any type of things that might have communication issues, behavior issues. So, and I also was consulting schools and preschools. And what often came up was that there was little understanding for what the nervous system does, what trauma might have influence on the children, and what maybe also teachers and preschool teachers have an influence on the children, their behavior, their way of dealing with situations. Since I am an EFT master trainer, it was somehow clear to me that's something they could benefit from, and especially the children could benefit from. I was doing an inclusion instruction course for myself and meeting this association, and I just, suggested that might be something they could be interested in. And they approved. And so for 8 years now, I've been actually doing this. So providing these workshops and going through this association. Also doing in-service days, at the preschools with just a team. The workshops usually are from all over Germany. They can attend, or even German-speaking Switzerland. And the in-service days are specific teams, specific preschools.
So I'm curious with regards to the how, like how do you bring with all of your other skills and expertise, how do you bring EFT into these training days for teachers, these workshops?
In the beginning, it started out with, we have these challenging behaviors. How do we deal with those? And why it's so overwhelming. And there's this biting, there's this hitting, there's this scratching, there's throwing stuff. How do we deal with the behavior? And always to focus on the consequences. And even, with the behavioral approach I'm having, I'm usually looking more into how can we prevent things and how can we set up the situation that we fulfill the need of the child to not show challenging behaviors. So yeah, in the beginning, I usually collect even, what the issues are, what they are having trouble with. And it's a long list of behavior they're being confronted with. And the other thing, the personal stress of the preschool teachers is also that very little money. They get underpaid here in Germany and have a lot of responsibilities and usually not enough staff. So that's another part that comes in, their personal stress, their overwhelm, wanting to do other things than they can do and not having the time and not having the knowledge, not having the training. So that comes in as well. And so that's how EFT came in, I have the behavioral part, but on the other side, dealing with the stress, I know it works so well to tap, right? And to look at yourself and to see, okay, what does that with me if this child is spitting at me? If this child is screaming, if this child is hitting another child. Usually we have just 2 days workshops, but at the end of the second day, they're usually all aware, that there are some things they can change about their own nervous system, their own calmness, their own stress. Usually they are also, stating then, well, if I can change things for myself and look at these things with more understanding too, and understanding there's a need. It's not because the children want to provocate us and hurt us and be mean to us, or, sometimes they take it very personal. I even had people say, well, I bite back because it hurts and I want them to know how that is. And that's, not legal and it's not right. But sometimes because they have no idea how to deal with these situations, these things come up. So being aware of that, knowing what they can do in the first signs of stress in themselves, and then also helping the children to cope with situations that might be difficult.
And in terms of results, like what results have teachers you've trained fed back to you after bringing it in for their own self-regulation and self-care and emotional well-being, and then filtering it out into tapping with the kids? Like what results have they got from that?
Just within the workshops, usually situations come up they had experienced as a child, and sometimes even at schools or preschools where someone said something. And so they acknowledge that there are some personal situations they have not processed well yet, or might have even processed traumatically. So looking at that, what does it with me? what's going on in me, and to appreciate those parts and acknowledge those parts and deal with those parts. So many times there's also sadness coming up about things they have missed or about things that have not gone well for them. And having that realization and tapping with that and dissolving that to a large degree, sometimes even within those 2 days, we don't go into specifics, right? I don't do trauma work with them during those 2 days. But still having that awareness helps a lot. And then doing future tapping, that's usually what helped the most, where they can even just imagine a situation coming up the next day that might be stressful, and tapping on that, where it's a high stress level, SAT level, 8, 9, 10. And then just by doing a few rounds, calming down and realizing, hey, this is just a child, right? And there is a need. They just want to be seen. They want to be heard. They want to be held. They want to be acknowledged. They want to be loved. And if I can fulfill that and at least hold space for that, then it's also much calmer for myself. And so we practice that, and they learn how to do that in the morning before they go to school, for example, or to preschool. So they tap on themselves. We usually try to set up a few rituals where they either have like a jingle or even red light being found on the way to work, or each time a child starts to get louder, that they start doing a tapping round, either for themselves or with the entire group. And there are so many great songs. I mean, most of them are in English, but there are great songs they can just put on and do with the children. And, I have my tapping bear. So I usually show them what to do with that, and, how they can engage the children with the stuffed animals or with the doll and do it together. So whenever they feel a stress coming up as an adult, they just do it for the entire group. And usually that helps the children to calm down too.
And I'm curious, were those stickers on the tapping
I
bear?
have Little Melody Learning Center. That's my company. I have little stickers with the logo on, right? These are notes, because most of the children I'm working with, they like music. And so they can tap on these little notes.
Got it. So they could then remember see where the points are in practice. Okay, cool. So it sounds basically like you work on identifying what are the triggers that sometimes can come up for a teacher that's actually their work to do from a behavior that might be a past memory from their time in education. And once they clear and neutralize that, or at least bring some awareness to it, and then they tap on thinking about the next day, the next week, going back to work, and potential similar situation come up, it reduces the chance of them getting as triggered, so that they can manage the situation in a more constructive way. Did I understand that correctly?
Yeah, certainly. And the other thing is, sometimes they have issues within the team too, that maybe a colleague is not so nice, or they're just overwhelmed because they don't have capacities in time, or they have more responsibility to take on because someone is sick, and, all these type of things. So also tapping for that, and even trying to get the entire team to be involved. So one can maybe remind the other, hey, I think something is coming up. Maybe there's some tension. Would you like to tap maybe a round? Or if you like, you can take a break and I take over, and then you could do a round of tapping for yourself. Or sometimes just doing a round with the children. I have lots of other exercises we implement as well. All these brain gym energy exercises we can implement, the crossover movements. And these are all things the children love. They love to do that. They have fun with that.
Before we wrap up, Silke, is there anything else that you'd like to add?
Oh, that's so fast. Time goes by so fast. We actually funded an initiative for colleagues of mine and myself to bring EFT more into schools, to reach more schools and more associations, to teach the teachers in the first place, and preschool teachers, but then also that they either can pass it on to the children, or we can come in and teach the children as well, and also get the parents involved. Because we strongly believe if we start there with the children, with the teachers, preschool teachers, then there's so much more calmness and peace overall. And I'm convinced we wouldn't have war if everyone would learn that. So that's like one of my biggest goals, one of my biggest wishes, that everyone has EFT in their toolbox and can use it and apply it.
I understand you also work one-to-one. You've got private practice as well. Do you want to talk a bit about that?
I do one-on-one coaching with parents, with teachers, with individuals, with children too. So when working with parents, usually I'm working first with the parents and then with the child, but things come often up like anxiety, being afraid of going to school. Like I have one situation right now in my mind where a girl, 10-year-old, didn't want to go back into the gym because she got bumped into by 2 boys. And she thought they did it on intention. So she felt very hurt, and not only physically, but also emotionally. She didn't want to go back in there. So we tapped on that. We tapped on her fear. We dissolved the situation and went back into the moment where she experienced it, or shortly after. And then we also did the future tapping on that. And it's so cool because she already knows now the procedure. So she can go and she's like, I'll do it. I'll do it. And then she tells me, how to do it. And she taps, and 1-2 rounds usually are enough. And then this thing is from 10 to 0. And she's like, oh, I'm looking forward to going back to sports tomorrow. That's
Yeah.
all.
Oh my goodness. That's the amazing thing is when we get them young and we tap with them when they're young, they need less tapping. They don't have as much
Totally.
baggage
Yeah.
as the older ones or the adult because it's nipping it in the bud.
Totally. Or, if they fall down, I had a little girl falling off the bike and I didn't know her. I was walking by and I saw her falling and like, would you like to try something? She was crying. She had her knee scratched and there are these magic points. And she's like, well, yeah. So we did that. And it wasn't even a round and she was already fine. Or another
Yeah.
child falling off the trampoline. I thought she really hurt herself. The neck looked a little weird in the beginning, but not even a full round. And she's like, oh, it's all good. So I usually want to keep tapping. Then the children are done.
Yeah. And they're open. We don't have to tap on any suspicion, any doubt, any, like overthinking things. Already in their body. They're already open. They're feeling their emotions. We go straight to it. And it's just incredible.
And one major example, maybe someone already heard me talking about that because for me, like that was the most intense experience tapping with a 9-year-old girl with Down syndrome. And I was doing behavior services with them, right? The parents already told me before she's crying so much in the car and screaming, and it's really hard to get her into the car. She usually doesn't want to. They have no idea what happened. She might have gotten hurt, but she couldn't talk. She couldn't tell. She just refused to go in the car. And it didn't matter if they went somewhere where it was fun or if they went to a therapy session or to school. So whenever they got into the car, she was screaming. So I started like the regular thing, approaching the garage where the car was and reinforcing single steps and getting her to open the car and standing there. But she didn't go into the car. And then a good friend of mine told me, well, did you try tapping with her? I was like, I didn't even think about it because I thought she's not understanding it. She's not imitating yet. And she seemed to not understand the process yet. And for me, at that point, it was in the very beginning when I started EFT, it was still that I thought it's more mentally, right? And so I started tapping on myself and I tried out if she would be okay with me leading her hand, which she was. So we tapped a few rounds and not even 2 rounds finished. And she was climbing into the car. And I did all the reinforcement stuff and music and right away got her back out before she could even get uncomfortable. Then she took my hand and she wanted to continue tapping. And from that moment on, it was dissolved. There was no more issue. And I didn't have the language, right? I didn't know what to really tap on. I just talked about things that might have happened. It's like, even though I might have burned myself in the hot seat, or even though I might have pinched skin when they closed the buckle of the seatbelt, or even though it might have been really boring and a long way, or even though I might have been going to a place I didn't want to go to. So all these things, I just tried it. And it seemed to work. There it was clear to me, it's not mentally, it's not cognitive, it's really emotional. And that was a big eye-opener for me, the situation.
Oh my goodness, so inspiring, so inspiring. Thank you so much, Silke, for your time, sharing your experience here. And I really appreciate you also coming on here to help support spreading this information that this tool exists. A lot of people just don't know it exists. It's helping so many lives. So the more people can be aware of it, more people who are ready to give it a go and see if it can help them can also benefit. So thank you for helping with supporting and raising awareness with that.
Yes, thank you for providing this platform and having this interview. So thank you very much.